Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Good afternoon and welcome to our show, Think Fit, Get Fit, Stay Fit, sponsored by Mind and Body Strengthening. I'm your host, Scott Marsh, and we are broadcasting live on the Phoenix Business Radio X, located in the Maxix studio here in Tempe, Arizona. One of the purposes of our show is to highlight success stories from professionals who are extremely busy and have limited time to adhere to a nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle program. We aim to help those busy professionals break through the barriers of thinking fit, getting fit, and staying fit. And another purpose is to provide educational information that is research-based and peer-reviewed. And lastly, leadership. Leadership in the sense of individuals or companies that promote, encourage, and lead by example of thinking fit, getting fit, and staying fit to their employees, customers, friends, and families. And today we have a co-host, Karen Nowicki. She's the owner of Phoenix Business Radio X here in Tempe. So welcome, Karen.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
I am very excited and feel very privileged to be sitting in on this conversation.
Oh, we're great. It's so great to have you.
Do I get to introduce our guest?
Yes, you can. Please go ahead.
All right. So today we are very fortunate to have with us in the studio Anne Lorimor. She is not your typical great-grandmother sitting in a rocking chair. At 85, Anne climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest mountain in Africa, as the oldest woman. This climb was to benefit her cause of empowering disadvantaged children and youth. And in July of this year, she plans to climb again to set a world record as the oldest person to climb the highest freestanding mountain in the world. While this is a monumental achievement in itself, Anne is not doing this for herself. She's very humble, isn't she?
Yes, she is. Very.
All about helping others. Again, the purpose is to gain attention and funds for her cause.
In 2016, Anne founded Lorimor Child Empowerment Foundation, doing business as creating exciting futures to show children their options, give them the tools to reach their full potential, and then pay it forward. Each child is encouraged to give back by in turn helping others. Anne says, "My life is about helping kids in every way possible. To empower kids can create a ripple effect that benefits all of us." Her motto is a hand up, not a handout.
Love it.
Yeah.
Anne's record-breaking climb and creating exciting futures for children and youth is made possible only through donor support. For more information, and we'll say this again, I hope several times throughout the segment and certainly at the end, for more information and also to book Anne as a speaker, or of course, we hope to contribute, go to creatingexcitingfutures.org. So with that wonderful introduction, please welcome Anne. Hello.
Hello, Karen and Scott.
Hi, Anne. How are you?
Very good. Glad to be here with you.
Well,
we are thrilled to have you. And I think the two of you met through alliances. Am I right?
Correct.
Yeah. So for those of us who are listening and aren't familiar with alliances, it's this incredible organization, not just a networking organization. It's an opportunity for people to come together. Inventors, entrepreneurs, authors, speakers, business owners, investors who come together on a weekly basis at the round table right here out of Maxix.
Yep.
And have a chance to collaborate and get to know each other. And you're both current members.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
And this is how the magic began to happen, right?
Yes.
All right.
So, Anne, you have this whole story, and it's all about helping empowering these young kids. So, can you just tell us where it all started from?
I think that people espouse the causes that mean something to them. So my own life, I think, led into this work for me. I was born at the beginning of the Great Depression, the oldest of 10 children.
Mm.
We were very often hungry. We dressed in hand-me-downs, and we were cold a lot of the time. But somehow people were often kind, and we never lost hope. So I felt I want to give hope to other kids.
So you're on the other side of that.
Yes.
That's
That's the past, but it still has an effect and makes me want to help kids. And I think I can understand them in a way that people couldn't, that had never been in that situation.
Yeah. So where did you grow up at?
I was born in Indiana.
Okay.
But I never really lived there. We left when I was 2 weeks old, came to New Mexico, but then my mother went back and we taught 1 year and then came back. And I lived a lot of places. I'd been in 18 states by the time I was 5 years old.
18.
By the time you were 5.
5 years
With
old.
a family of, you said 10 siblings?
They weren't all born yet. I was the oldest,
Okay,
remember?
yes. Wow.
We traveled with only, I think there were the two. I don't remember that we ever really traveled much with the third one. That we lived in Kansas with my grandmother for a little while. And then we went to New Mexico, and they started a children's home and a school.
Your parents did?
Yes.
Okay. That had to influence your life as well.
Very much. I helped with those baby orphans when I was only 9 years old. I would help with feeding and bathing and changing and all of the things that little babies need. And
plus, you had all your siblings.
No, I didn't have all my siblings. No, I had only 3.
At that point, okay.
So some more came along. A fourth came along while we lived there.
Okay.
But I was happy that one of those baby orphans came to visit me in Wisconsin a few years ago. And I was really happy to see that he'd done well. And made me feel good that he came.
And social media is great to stay in touch, too. I know you are on social media.
I don't know that he is, but I am.
Yeah. Tell us, give the social media. You're on Facebook?
I'm on Facebook. My personal is under Anne Lorimor. And then I do have a page called Creating Exciting Futures, another page called Anne's Kili Climbers.
Oh, my goodness.
And I mean some business organization pages as well.
Sure.
So the Kili Climbers, is that going to be updated as you do your climb and as time goes leading up to that event?
That's what we really hope to do, is make it really effective for people. In fact, one person on now is the woman that climbed with me before.
Okay. So when's the climb?
The climb is in July. We will start with a safari, which will be absolutely fabulous because the animals in Tanzania are great. And then after that, we take one day between to just sort of get ourselves together and maybe buy our souvenirs, whatever we want to do. And then we'll have a 9-day climb up and down for Kilimanjaro.
9 days?
Yes.
Wow.
People like to know how long it is. Well, it does vary. Some trips are 6 days and some are 10, and that means up and down. But ours will be 9. Before we were 8, actually.
Okay. So we're going for the world record. So how do they know you did the world record? I mean, does someone going to be there? How is someone going to come from Guinness Book World Records? Is it just the outfitters vouch for you? I mean,
not at all. It's very complicated with the Guinness Book of Records. We have the list, though, of the things we're supposed to do, and I think I'm going to have a GPS that measures every step of the way. Before, I wasn't quite as formal. I signed in at every camp that we were in personally, and I had pictures taken of me under the signs and things, but this will be much more complicated.
Okay.
And we're going to do it right because before I only kept the record about 4 months anyway, but this time I wanted to be sure that it's in good order and everything is perfect.
I'm sure it will be. So let's go back to, so with your parents. So they were helping orphans and bringing people in, and was this into your home, or did they have a business, or?
There was an orphanage.
Okay.
They didn't want to call it that. They wanted to call it a children's home, but it was there. And then there was a school as well.
And they ran the school?
Both the school and the orphanage.
Holy cow.
And there was a church associated with it as well.
So I mean, was there just a constant flow of young people coming through that all the time? I mean, did this go on for years, or? Well,
we lived there for 6 years.
Okay.
And people did come all that time, some orphans and some people to come to the school. They'd be boarding students there at the school. We made it quite a family enterprise. My aunt came out to be what you might call the matron of the orphanage. And my uncle came, and he was the farmer, and he also got a job carrying the rural mail. So we were very much a family there.
Okay. So then did you stay? So then how long were you there? Were you there through your high school years, or?
I was not.
Okay.
We were fundamentalists, and they actually sort of made my father so uncomfortable. It was almost like an Amish shunning, I think. And they made him so uncomfortable that we left.
Oh, really?
And that's when we were homeless, is after we left that place. And we traveled for a while in this big old truck that my father had. He took and put metal ribs on it and then put canvas over it, much like what they call the prairie schooner, the
covered wagon.
Covered wagon.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty crowded place because we did have in there, by that time we had, I think we were up to 6 children, and we had 4 adults that were there. And then we did have a little trailer that had belonged to my grandmother, and it was on behind, so it helped us some. And we did quite a long trip right in the middle of summer to come out to Arizona from the lovely 7,000 feet of New Mexico.
And that was the trek to Arizona then?
Yes.
And you have been here ever since?
No, not at all. Until I came here this last time, I'd never lived any place longer than 6 years in my life.
Wow.
We lived in Arizona for about 6 years, and then I went off to college. But I did want to talk about my high school.
Yeah.
When I got ready for high school, my second grade teacher that we were still in touch with, she thought I had potential. So she paid my tuition to a boarding school in California.
Oh.
For your high school?
For my high school.
Oh, wow.
And I felt that it's something I really wanted to pay forward.
What a gift.
And it was a wonderful,
do you remember
wonderful
her name?
gift. Oh, absolutely. Her name was Mary Lester Huff.
Oh, shout out to Mary Lester Huff.
Good job.
That's beautiful.
She was such a good person. And just, as I say, it helped when someone believed in you when things were going rather badly.
So that was a pinnacle point of changing your life right there.
Well, it certainly had an effect on me.
Yeah.
And it certainly made me feel the importance of helping other people and believing in them as well.
Yeah. So then you finished your boarding school.
I didn't stay there the whole time.
Okay.
I had 1 year there, and then I came back, and there was a small boarding school here in Arizona, which we'd actually stayed at 1 year between New Mexico and the time that my parents started their school here in Phoenix. And so as I said, we were there for that 1 year.
Okay.
And then we came to Phoenix, and that was when we were really homeless, and we lived in the tent with on the bare ground with no electricity or running water or telephone or anything like that. It was quite a hard time.
I'm sure.
But it didn't last too long. And again, people were kind.
Yeah. And then after that, then you went to college?
I went to college from there. I went first to it was actually the college my father had gone to back in Cincinnati.
Okay.
And I stayed there for a year. Lots of challenges along the way. When I was there, I went at 17. I started college fairly early. And then I didn't want to stay there because it wasn't accredited. So I got myself accepted at the University of Cincinnati. Fine. It's a good school and I could do something. But when it came time to sign up, they told me that I would have to pay out-of-state tuition, even though I'd been there a year, because I was underage and my parents were residents of Phoenix.
No.
Well, I just, there was nothing to do but just not go.
Yeah.
So instead, I got myself a scholarship to a nursing school. And I did 3 years with that. And that has been a nice back thing for me, fallback position for a lot of years.
Yeah. And where was that at?
That was also in Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, okay.
Yeah, I was happy in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
It had a lot of wonderful music and art museums and things that I loved. And so it was a great place for me.
Yeah.
And then I graduated from there and life went on.
So talk about your military involvement during the war. Was that during the Korean War? Okay, let's I got to get this straight.
All right. When I was very young, when the war ended, I was only 15. I had wanted to go into the Nurse Cadet Corps, but I was just a little too young and they wouldn't let me.
You couldn't sneak by, huh?
I know a lot of guys did sneak into the military, but I didn't. My parents wouldn't have stood for it either.
Yeah.
So then I got the nursing anyway.
Okay.
And then my first position after working at my home school, it was at one of the hospital nursing schools, the kind you did the old-fashioned way where you really had a hands-on experience. I went to Fort Carson.
Okay.
In Camp Carson in Colorado. And I worked in the military there probably about 3 years.
Okay.
And I still was determined I was going to college. So I applied to Berkeley because some guy that I met in Colorado said it was a very wonderful school. And for some reason I was accepted.
Really?
That's awesome.
So you went to Berkeley.
I did. And I had a double major there. I did a major in journalism, and then I did one in, it was an AB in journalism and a BS in nursing.
Well, that's quite a combination.
Well, I was keeping my fallback position.
Yes.
When you have nothing behind you, you really have to be careful that you in some way protect yourself. That's what I did.
Did you spend any time in journalism then, career-wise?
I didn't really, but it was very helpful in a lot of things I did. I had my job with Red Cross for several years, and the nursing helped with that. And the journalism helped too, because I was able to talk about it.
Communication.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I spent about 3 years with Red Cross. Then I decided I really wanted more education. I stayed at Berkeley long enough to get a master's in public health. So I was well equipped for that.
My goodness. I'm in awe. I'm literally sitting here, jaw dropped in awe. Wow. Have you always been athletic?
Well, when I was just a little girl, I climbed all the time. The mountains, we lived right in the mountains. And I climbed a little hill every day. And we had something we called Everyday Rock. And that, if you couldn't go up a mountain, we'd go up that rock every day.
Sounds like our mountains in Arizona. They're rocks. They're not really mountains. They're rocks.
We have rather large mountains had in New Mexico, and we do here in Arizona as well. And I've always loved climbing. And so I'm never was professional. It was just something I loved doing. So I did.
So leading up to your first climb, well, not first climb, but your first Mountain Kilimanjaro climb, had you done any other massive climbs before?
You might call them massive. I did Pikes Peak. When I was there at Fort Carson, my brother and sister moved with me to California, and I had them agree that I would get to climb Pikes Peak before I left. I said, well, I'm still a climber and I want to do this mountain. And I said, I was working the longest. And so the day I quit my job, I said, we're going to stay one more day and do it. Well, they backed out. They just wanted to get on with their new lives. So we went on and had a pretty interesting time in California and all that. But I always wanted to climb Pikes Peak. Decided to do it. Finally, I heard my sister was going with some of the nephews, and we went in 2006 when I was 76 years old.
So that was the
big one.
Big climb.
Yeah. I never did any really huge ones. I always climbed around where I was, but just never anything big. But interestingly enough, Kilimanjaro is almost a mile higher, 19,341 feet, almost a mile higher than the highest mountain in Colorado.
Wow.
But we did climb. I went up Pikes Peak, and they were going to do 4 more, and I said, well, I'm not going to commit to this, but if I do well on Pikes Peak, I want to go. So I did, and we did. And then otherwise in my life, I have climbed things that amount to mountains. I went up the Great Pyramid in Egypt when you were allowed to.
Really?
And up Ayers Rock in Australia. And I went up the Great Pyramid in Mexico City. So I've done a few things like that. And a lot of climbing around in the mountains of Mexico and the mountains of the southwest United States.
Yeah. So it's like it's really your passion.
I love
because you enjoy it. Yeah,
I do love climbing, and I was going to go to Kilimanjaro when there was somebody that said he was the oldest person to climb the 7 summits. I'd already asked my niece and nephew to go with them, and they said yes. But then this guy came along, and I thought, well, somebody older would know the problems of an older person to climb a mountain, and so I asked to go with him, and he allowed. What happened was he put it off a year. And then I saw that I was going to set a record if I went. So I said, why not combine this with my passion for kids and my helping of them and get some publicity and some support out of it?
Yeah. So that's how that got. So that's how that connection
got started. Yes.
Okay. But the foundation you had already started though. Before that point.
Actually, no. I had a little fund under Arizona Community Foundation.
Okay.
And so the money was to raise for that fund that time. I could specify where it went, but I couldn't do all the things I wanted to do, like the scholarships I'm doing now. Yeah. And so then I went ahead and did the foundation afterward. But it was the same idea of just helping underserved kids go where they want to go and live great lives.
So the first time you went to Mount Kilimanjaro, I mean, what was your expectations going there? I mean, did you kind of visualize like how it was going to be, what it was going to, what your experience was going to be? I mean, what were your thoughts on that leading up to it?
Well, I asked my nephew to go with me the first time, and he said no. But then when it was put off a year, he said, sounds pretty interesting. I think I will. And so he brought in, dozens of films of people climbing Kilimanjaro, handicapped people and older people and just every kind of person there was. And so I did have somewhat of a picture of what was going to happen when I got there.
And then leading up to that, how did you prepare?
I walked around the mountains in around Phoenix.
Okay.
I live between two mountains, and I can climb on those. And then I did Squaw Peak once, and I didn't like that. It's too crowded. But I did mountains off 32nd Street and off Tatum and North Mountain and South Mountain. And then as time got closer, I went up to Humphreys and tried that a couple of times because it's a higher mountain. It goes up to, I think, about 13,000 feet. And we also walked the rim of the Grand Canyon. That's, about 7,000 feet along on the south side. And we walked that. And I did well with it. I had no problem. We did over 18 miles that day.
Okay.
So I felt like I was in good shape to do it.
So you got a little elevation, acclimation before you went. So that's good.
Well, I'll tell you another little interesting thing, though.
Sure.
I had planned to spend the last week in Colorado. I had an invitation for somebody that lived way high, probably over 7,000 feet. And that was in my book. I wanted to be really, really in good shape. And somebody decided it was time for me to get some publicity. And so they booked me with all the major channels and stations and everything in that week before. Oh. And I said, I can't give this up. I have to do it.
So you just...
So I did. And I went over without as much acclimatization as I wanted. But I'll tell you something, and a lot of doctors will not agree with me, but I told you I did live between the time I was 5 until I was 11 at 7,000 feet in New Mexico. And I think that still had some effect on me, perhaps that I can acclimate faster than other people because your lungs get bigger when you live at that altitude. And there are a lot of things that happen. And then I did have the week of the safari, and I think we were over 5,000 feet with that. So I did the best I could with it.
Well, obviously you did really well. So,
tell me about the recovery after a climb like that. What was your experience with the recovery, and not only physically, but emotionally and mentally as well? I'd imagine after something that you prepare so intensely for, and you've got this attention, and it's all you're focused on, or I'm assuming that's all you're focused on. Is there a transition for you when it's all said and done, emotionally, mentally, as well as physically?
Let me tell you first how I felt at the top of the mountain.
Yes, please.
I hated to talk about that because I thought I'll be so disappointing to people. I'm here at the top of the mountain. I had an episode where I think I was I had hypothermia for a little bit. And the guide and my nephew sort of held me in a human sandwich to warm me up and gave me some more things. I had layers, but they weren't enough. And somebody gave me her ski pants, which were in her pack and she wasn't using, and I got those on and I got to the top. But still, I'd gone about 20 hours without sleep, and it was 8 below. And when I got up there, I was just, you see me with my walking sticks and some of the little films just getting up that mountain. And when I got there, all I thought was, well, I'm here.
It's like that movie with Chevy Chase in the Grand Canyon. It's one of those vacation movies, and they stand their arms around looking down the Grand Canyon, and they nod their heads and like, okay, well, we're done, right? Well,
it was different for me afterward. Later on, I thought, hey, I've done it.
Yes, but you were so tired, so exhausted, I would imagine.
One of the pictures up there shows me with my eyes closed under the sign.
Yeah.
But afterward, I got quite a few chances to speak. One was for a congresswoman in California, and I spoke to 800 people, and I enjoyed doing that. And just other speeches around, and it just was fun. I enjoy speaking to people and telling stories and things like that. Even ever since I was a little girl, I've loved telling stories. How
neat, all these years later at 85, right? You're still climbing. You said you climbed as a child, and you're a great storyteller. It's wonderful to hear. And that's been the shape of your life, right? How neat is that you're still a great messenger and inspiration on behalf of both climbing and storytelling. And of course, the whole purpose of what you're doing is on behalf of these kiddos who need help.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did a lot of different jobs in my life, and I never hated any of them, but I didn't really feel as strongly about any of them as I do about this. And of course, the climbing was always one of my passions as a hobby, a sort of thing. Yeah.
And, and to know too, she finished that climb with no oxygen, right? It was all.
Oh.
Yeah, so you didn't have to have any assistance like that?
I didn't.
Yeah, she did it all on her own.
Do climbers normally need to have?
Well, a lot of people have to. Now,
She's almost at 20,000 feet, so.
Right, so.
It's really remarkable.
There was a man last year. He was why I put off my climb this time. I was going to do it in 88, which I felt was long enough, but he was a little older than that. And so I put it off a year because I want to set the record. I want to get some real attention to this cause of mine. And he did use oxygen, and I felt like I was sort of cheating. But if he hadn't, they'd probably sent him down.
Yes.
But I was just really. There was an interesting way that our guide did it. I mean, our expedition leader. You'd go up to a camp, and you'd be all set up there. And then during the time you were there. And we didn't hike a lot we did not hike all day long. We hiked for a certain amount of time, and then you hiked, and then you went and did what you wanted. But beyond that, he took us up a few hundred feet, maybe 800 feet. And then we hung around there for an hour or two and came back down. Next day, we went up past where we'd been that time, had another camp, and did it again. So he did a wise thing in helping us be a climber. The only person that had to go down from our group was a former porter whom somebody had hired as a photographer. And he raced around so fast that he had to go down on the third day. And I thought of all of us, he would be the one that would be able to do it well, but not.
Not the case. Oh, my gosh. When you're hiking, especially on these longer, I'll call them intense climbs because they sound intense to me. Is there some magic that goes on in your mind or your heart? Is there a song that you sing, or are there imagery? Or tell me like the kind of the inside scoop as to, for you personally, how does it feel to be in this quest while you're in it?
Well, the first thing was, I said, failure is not an option. I am going up this mountain.
So there's no plan B?
not a plan
Only
B.
Plan
for
A.
Me. Only plan A to get
good.
up that mountain. And I don't know that I have anything special. I enjoy every bit of the scenery. There was gorgeous flowers up there. The thing I liked best were the stars. They just sort of seemed to be right down around your head, so bright you couldn't believe them. And we saw the Southern Cross over there, which, of course, you don't see on this side of the world, and that was fun.
Wow.
I just really enjoyed it, but I was tired. And so this time with Scott Marsh as my trainer, which I didn't have a personal trainer before, I know that I'm going to be stronger and I'll do more. I did climb into some caves and things while we were stopped, but I didn't get to the snows really. I just looked at them. So I'd like to go actually up to them this time and do some side trips that I didn't have the energy to do before.
So let's talk about that, Scott Marsh.
Yes.
First of all, when you met Anne, I know we spoke about it shortly after. You were like, you've got to meet this lady. She's amazing. And then you had an opportunity to talk about how you can help her. Tell us a little bit about not only what it's like to be working with Anne, but also what is kind of the strategy around making sure that she's fit and ready for this climb.
Well, I mean, it's easy to start because, she's already in, really good shape. And, I would hope that maybe she's inspiring some of her peers, because, a lot of people aren't doing things at her age that, that she's doing. So we could only hope that, some people are listening for that. But as far, like her workouts, we're just working on, some general strength, some muscle endurance. She felt like she needed to be stronger in her midsection. So, we're working on some exercises and things for her to do that. Plus, just working on, getting her heart rate up a little bit. And so she's going to be able to handle that because, we can't really replicate altitude here. So we just have to do the best we can in preparing her for that, to trudge up that mountain and, not have her eyes closed when she gets to the top.
We've also worked on my arm strength. That was not as good as my leg strength before. And I have had a shoulder replacement, so we have to work a little harder than we might have had I not had that.
Yeah.
But she's easy. She's really easy to work with. She's very skilled at all her exercises. So, it's just a real pleasure in helping her. And, I really want her to succeed and get this done, which I know she will.
This is perfect timing for me too, personally, because I just started working out with Scott. We talked about that before we came on air. And I've had several starts and stops with Scott. His studio or my studio is directly above the gym, and he'll come up and check on me. He's like, Karen, I haven't seen you for a while. I'm like, I promise. And it's my excuse. And I'm really clear now that I am committed is that I've been too busy to do it. But that's the very reason why I have to stay with a routine, right? In order to to have the stamina to do what I'm doing, I have to stick with the routine. So this is a real treat for me to be listening to the two experts, the two pros around consistency and longevity, right? Because you couldn't decide to do this yesterday. You have to be committed for a long period of time.
That is absolutely true. I say that I cannot afford to get out of shape. Younger people can, and they can get back. It would be very hard for a person at my age to recover the strength if they didn't keep up their fitness routines. So we do that. Another nice thing about Scott is he introduces me to other people that come in for training, and it's always fun. I like meeting people, and some of them went with me on one of the local treks that we had around. Oh. Well, there was one around the lake, the Tempe Town Lakes, and that was a fun hike. Yep. And he brought some people that I met in the studio, and then we've done other hikes, and some people that have worked with him have come along. So we plan to do a hike every 2 weeks from now until about the time I go. Just, local ones for other people to learn about what's going on.
I'm going to have to be with you on at least one of those.
Yep. I mean, everyone that, hears her story and, and meets her, I mean, they just, it's just an amazing, sweet story. And it's, in the bigger picture and her passion of helping, all these young kids, how could you not want to do that?
Yeah. And to your point, you've done a lot of things over your career. And this is the one thing that you've been most passionate about is helping and being of service to others.
That's true. And especially kids. I focus on homeless, foster, and orphan children because I think they do have special challenges. And I want to help the ones that need it most, but still that have potential and will do something with it.
Well, I love that you mentioned that. I don't know if Scott told you, maybe we haven't talked about it, but there is a nonprofit organization called Scott Foundation, and they help kids who are transitioning out of foster care here in Arizona into being adults, right? Not only knowing how to handle themselves with their money management, a job placement, schooling, if that's in their future, but also around being servant leaders, which is exactly what we're talking about. And so their show airs out of the studio twice a month called Scott Foundation Thought and Service Leaders. I would love to connect you with Colleen, their founder, and have you perhaps even be on that show too, because the kids run the show by themselves. It's an amazing organization, and I have no doubt that they would be deeply inspired by not only who you are as an individual and a beautiful soul, but also your mission to help make a difference and inspire and give hope. That's really what they're trying to do. They're foster kids themselves, and yet they show up bigger than life and are really great, inspirational kiddos.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It sounds absolutely wonderful. I want to meet this person.
Good.
And I might tell you that in my own program, one of the things I do is give scholarships to Teen Feast. It's a special program out of CEO Space International, a business mentoring and educational institution. And kids go there and they spend a week. They learn about networking. They learn about brainstorming. They come out with wonderfully enhanced self-esteem. And they get leadership training there. And I might be able to give scholarships to some of her kids.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
And that's where I get my kids that are recommended by people in the community who work with the kind of person that I particularly want to help. And I've taken 10 kids to this program in the past, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And they've just come out wonderfully. I'll tell you about one of them. She wanted to be a singer. So I introduced her to a couple of singers in the group. And then she was asked to sing at the graduation ceremony for the teens. She came back home and she invited me to several of her concerts at her high school, and she had several lead positions in that. I was so proud of her. And then she got gigs all over town, and I just felt like we'd given her a boost. That was really, really good for her.
That's amazing. That sounds wonderful.
That's just one of the programs I have.
What are your hopes with this climb? Is there a certain amount of money you're hoping to raise?
To take my team and me there, it'll take about $25,000
for the climb.
That's for the climb, but I'm hoping I'll get much more. What I want to do is turn my foundation into an endowment fund that will serve kids in perpetuity, so that we can always work off of the income from the money that we have. And it's a dream of mine. And when I get bigger and am able to do those things, I do want to give college scholarships as well, and maybe even to vocational schools. I think that kids should be encouraged to do what's in their nature and what they want to do. And so I have there's no stigma for me in vocational schools or any other things of that sort. But it's just, if they want college, then I want them to be able to have it.
Mm-hmm. So $25,000 to just get you and your team there. And then beyond that, what's your goal financially? Is there a number that we can wrap our brains and hearts around on your behalf?
I'd really like to have, in a couple of years, at least $3 million in the endowment fund, so that it's enough to start doing something. I'm leaving what I have to it when I go, but I didn't want to wait that long to help kids. So I started in my own small way.
Yeah, we want you to be around to actually watch and feel and experience this. Wow, what a legacy.
Yes, it's amazing. It's really amazing. So, but she's going to be here a long time, though. She's going nowhere.
I have no doubt.
Yeah. I say maybe I'll be 30 more years. Who knows?
I don't see a reason why there can't be. I mean, she's the, she should be the poster child for, exercising every day. She's out there every day, 2 hours, walking and hiking. And then she's working out, she's coming to the gym, working out. She eats really well. She takes care of herself. I mean, she is truly a poster child for this whole, health crisis that we have in our country. So good job, Anne.
In summer, I also swim in the afternoon.
Okay, so there we go.
I add an extra thing.
Where do you swim?
I have a pool, and it's a quite big one, and not Olympic size, but I think it's about 36 feet long, and so I do a lot of laps in there every day.
I'd like to have a conversation just around folks. Really, I'm 54 years old, and I know I'm not old. I've got a long way to go, but I'll tell you, there's mornings that I wake up and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I just do not feel the same as I used to. So when we do get older, and when folks are in retirement age, even at my age, there's times I think, I need to start thinking about winding down. Like, what does that look? Right. And you should see Anne's face. You were looking at me when I said that, but Anne gave me this scowl, like, shame on you. But that's why I'm actually kind of setting the stage for this portion of our conversation. Do you hear folks who are your age and or younger, I would imagine on either side of your age, do you just want to grab them and hold their sweet face and say, there's more life than what you're recognizing? Do you find that people like yourself, do you run with circles of people who are motivated and healthy and out there exercising and moving? Or do you find that more people tend to be, like I said a second ago, saying, hey, I'm just resigning to wind down?
I'm going to answer your question. First of all, I gravitate to the ones that are active and healthy and that sort of thing, because we can do things together. I have to tell you a story about a man from church. I was so amused. He'd always liked hiking, but when he got to be 60, he said, well, guess I'm not going to be able to hike anymore.
At 60?
Somehow, somebody said, oh, go on a while longer. Just see what you can do. So he kept on, and he did more than ever. And I think he's in his early 70s now, and he's actually going to do the Grand Canyon, I think this month, rim to rim to rim. All in one day.
Holy cow.
24 hours. And I believe he'll do it because he's strong. He climbs around Tom Thumb and all of these mountains around here. And so people can do things if they decide they
it's a decision. That's what Scott keeps telling me.
Yeah,
it's a choice. And it's a daily, right? It's a daily commitment.
Consistent daily practice.
Absolutely. Right. And when you want to, I give myself an occasional break for some food that's not great, but I do consistently eat well, as you said.
Yes.
And every day, I don't care what it's like. If it's raining outside, then I do that exercise you give me of crawling the wall with my hands and, those kinds of things. I do keep doing it. And I think people need to realize that you can do, not everybody, and certainly not everybody's going to do what I do, but they should do what they want to do and keep on doing it. I say to myself, I'm not what I was when I was 18. Well, of course I'm not. And I realize that this time's a little slower here and I don't think quite as fast here, but I keep on doing all the things to keep my brain and body in shape. And I love the thing that St. Francis said, that first you do what's necessary, then you do what's possible, and suddenly you've accomplished the impossible.
Oh, beautiful.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Good job. So with some of your siblings, so I met your one sister, Chloe, on our Tempe Town Lake. And, she's kind of a remarkable lady in herself. So so she biked across the United States with a group of women. So can you want to share a little bit of that with us on that?
I think I'm positive she was over 60 when she did it. And most of the other women were older as well. And it was a remarkable feat. They all the way from San Diego to St. Augustine. And I got to see them when they came through Phoenix. They told me they would be at this time on Canal Bank, and so I went there and I saw them. And they come back together. They've had their annual reunions ever since. And I got to meet them again just last year and see those women. It felt good that there are people out there doing those exciting things.
And why did she do that? Just to do it? Or did she have another?
She didn't have a cause. She just wanted to do it as far as I know. She'd done it earlier across Iowa. There's a bike ride there.
Through the middle of the country. Okay.
That was her first big one over there. And she was a little bit afraid, but she went with my brother and they had a great old time. And the people were so warm and friendly in the middle states. They often are. Yeah. And so they stayed in the people's homes when they did this travel, and it was great fun for her.
And that was just across Iowa. The state of Iowa. Okay.
Yeah. But that's still quite a.
That's a long way, but then across America's,
I'll tell you.
Quite far, Karen.
I did years ago. I did a bike ride from Phoenix to Tucson with a group. I was lifeguarding for the city of Tempe at the time, and we did that. That was my big thing. And I did climb. I did go down the Grand Canyon. We hiked down the Grand Canyon. We did a 7-week flotilla where they did the gourmet food on the boats and everything. Yeah. And then we camped. And it was a torrential rain that year. It was crazy. And then we got helicoptered out. So that was the plan. But I didn't train. I trained properly for the ride to Tucson, but I could have definitely benefited from more training consistently for the hike down the Grand Canyon. And I listening to you, I'm like, gosh, what goal? It's funny today with my precision nutrition coaching that I do with Scott. The assignment is to create a behavioral goal versus an outcome goal. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, I know I need to have behavioral goals, like continue to eat well and eat slowly, which boy, is so hard for me to do. But I also want to have an outcome goal too, because I kind of have that. I like to have something to look forward to. So even if it's just simply joining you guys for a hike upcoming, I think that would be neat.
You would be very welcome, and you'll enjoy them. We've chosen lovely spots. Right now is the time when the flowers are out because of the heavy rains, and it's so gorgeous. The lake walk is great fun, and many of those things are. I'll have to tell you a funny story about me, though. When I was younger, I didn't train. I just hiked. And when I first heard somebody, when I was I think I was just out of school at Berkeley, and she said that she was training for a hike, and I thought, wonder what she means.
What does that mean?
I just went out and walked when I wanted to walk.
Just go do it.
And climbed a mountain. And then one time my sister asked me, I hadn't been on a bike for 5 years, and so she asked me to go along, and why not? I got on it, and we did a 40-mile ride, and I didn't even feel it. But that's not true any longer. I have to train.
But just having that mentality that you're constantly physical has got to make a difference. And the mindset, right?
Well, the mindset, just in what she said, people today just don't, they just don't go with it. They just, they feel like they, prepare, set a plan, do it. Instead of just, let's just go and do it and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be fine, and just, she just goes. And I think, more people should think that way. Don't you think?
Well, I think it would have been good probably had we all known more. But my mother was always into nutrition, but we didn't do much formal kind of exercise. We just went out and did it.
But you're working, you're busy, you're moving.
And always. And I've always liked the things that move a lot of your muscles. I enjoy dancing, and I enjoy the hiking and the walking and all those things. When I'd come home from school, when I first came here to Arizona, I got another degree in social and in counseling, actually. And I'd come home just sometimes with my chin on the ground, and there'd be my dog. My dog needed walking. So I'd take that dog for a walk, and I'd come back feeling better. So I do believe that it's a wonderful thing to do.
And our kids are at a disadvantage. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to make a blanket statement about that because I know there are families who are committed to making sure their kids are out there being physical. But with technology the way it is, and so many desk jobs where people sit, myself included, if I allowed myself, I would be sitting here all day, sometimes for 8 to 9 hours a day. And I've had to remind myself to get up and walk up and down the stairs and move around. It's so easy for us to become very sedentary, and yet we are physical beings, right? So we've got to get that body and those juices flowing.
I worked for the state for a while as an inspector. That's another one of the things that prepared me to work with kids, because I did inspect the clinics and the residences for children and youth. But I always, when I was in the office doing my paperwork, I'd get up and I'd go to the fountain, and I'd get up and I'd go over here. Just something to keep moving so that I didn't get, I think you could get blood clots if you sat still all the time. So I didn't ever have that happen. And it ended up being a really good thing. Even to this day, beside the formal exercise I do with Scott and myself, when I go into a grocery store, I'll park way far away from the door and walk back and forth. Just work a little extra exercise. Some people are scramble for a thing to get as close to the door as they can get. Well, I don't see that. I think get myself a little exercise automatically. So it helps.
Those extra steps add up.
They do.
They do.
Christine wears something that measures her miles.
Yeah.
And so when we did our hike, the other time we did about 5 miles there on that Brown Mountain hike.
Okay.
But she had about 6 miles on hers because she'd done just some walking around herself earlier in the day.
Yeah. It makes, makes a big difference in all this. So
it does.
Yeah.
I wanted to quote one other thing, though, when you said you think you were sort of aging out of it at your young age. My brother has a saying, I don't know where he got it, but it helped me. He said, old age is the pits until you consider the alternative.
Oh, I like that. That's true, right?
I really felt it. I mean, when I complain that I can't do quite what I could do, I think, well, yeah, but I could be underground. So I'm here and I'm having a wonderful time and helping some people.
Yeah.
You make me think of my dad. My dad's here locally in his city of Tempe, and he's 80 years old, has had many surgeries for his back. I mean, bars and rods ever since he was 19 and older. And his favorite pastime is to golf. And there were years that he was not able to golf because the pain was so bad and his just inability to move. And yet he keeps working on his physical well-being, and he keeps eating healthy, and he's got a vibrant girlfriend that just, they love to do things together. And he's a great example, like you, for someone who just says, I may have these things that will keep me from moving as far as I'd like to go, but they're not going to stop me. And I'm going to continue to grow and expand. And he's just a great example of somebody who keeps beating the odds and doing the things that he loves to do because he's made that decision to stay committed to it.
I think that's really important, and I'm so happy for him. I will say you one other thing that's my own little saying, and it is, it's never too early to start, and it's never too late to learn and grow.
I like that.
Yep.
I like that.
Yeah.
And sitting here thinking about this and thinking about Anne, we live here in this beautiful state of Arizona, and the environment is, really conducive to, to year-round activity, and we have all different climates here and things like that. And then, but also, not to, put an excuse on people that live in the North, but they just need to think a little differently because, there's, as, winter comes along, it's icy, it's cold out there and things like that. You just got to that's when you got to probably really have a better plan on how you're going to get out and do something and, do it safely, not slip and fall. Right. So,
well, same thing with us in Arizona on the opposite extreme. When it gets
heat.
To be 112, 120 sometimes, we and you will hear people hiking or walking and they haven't prepared. They have the heat stroke. And yet that can become an excuse as well. Yeah. I'm thinking of my son who's a baseball player. We've moved the tee and whatever those batting nets are into our living room. I have no living room furniture. It's not a gorgeous place to, to sit and have tea or whatever.
Right there.
It is. We're committed to giving him space during the summer. So all summer long, I hear this thunk, thunk, thunk all against the wall. And then he moves that net and he practices hitting because we want him to stay physical.
Yeah.
And yet we could use the excuse that it's too hot and it's not good for him. But we make sure that he's constantly moving all summer long.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. My sister-in-law walks in the malls when it's too hot to walk in the daytime.
Mall walking's big.
I didn't know that, but I know she did it. And what I do in the summer, sometimes it stays hot all night, but sometimes it doesn't. And we're getting up at 4:30 and 5 to do our walks in the summertime, as opposed to maybe 7 or 8 in the winter.
Yeah.
Yep, I've trained for a couple of half marathons, and I remember getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and getting out before it's. I do kind of miss that.
It's beautiful then.
That drive. Yeah, it is. It's all quiet. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Just got to shift your clock a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Go to bed a little earlier so you can get up earlier. So
this has been such a pleasure to get to know you. Is there anything, as we kind of run out, we have a few more minutes left, that we hadn't thought to ask, or a story that you want to share? We'll of course give another plug and shout out for your cause and where people can, come and get involved. Anything that we hadn't thought to ask?
Well, I'd like to tell you another story about one of the kids that I gave a scholarship to. This kid was, he was very, he thought for certain, he said, we never win anything. I won't win this scholarship. And then he did, and he went, and he brainstormed with kids, and he had a perfectly wonderful time. And he wanted to be a chef and own his own restaurant, and he'd been cooking since he was 6 years old. And so I was able to introduce him to a man I know who owns a restaurant, and who said I could give him his personal phone number, which I thought was wonderful. And then recently I introduced him. I will introduce him. I met someone who helped me with the foundation in the first place, and her husband is a chef and a caterer, and he's happy to talk to him. So that introduction I'm going to make. Well, the kid, when he came back, he graduated high school. And I thought, first person in his whole family that ever graduated high school.
wow.
And they all came to see him graduate, and they were so proud of him. And I'm just, I'm trying to get him a scholarship for the Scottsdale Culinary Institute if they have them. I'm trying to find out, because this kid, he has what it takes, and I'd love to see him go on
That's
succeeding.
wonderful.
And he's here local.
Yes, he is.
So again, back to the Scott Foundation, they do a lot of work with Cartwright's Fine Cuisine in Cave Creek and Carefree. I would love to, and that chef there, Chef Brett, is amazing. He is embraced and loved on these kids. I don't think any of them really want a culinary future, but we all need to learn how to prepare and eat healthy food and enjoy the art of eating and preparation, myself included, as I'm doing the slow eating thing right now. But I would love to make that introduction with Chef Brett as well, if nothing else, just as another connection for him and for you.
Thank you. I know he'd love it, and I would like it very much.
Awesome. Go ahead.
So, Anne, after we summit Mount Kilimanjaro, so what's going to happen after that? What's the plan? So you're going to get up there, you're going to,
enjoy being up there when you get up there.
I love being up there. You look up there and you see the curvature of the earth, and it's pretty impressive. But when I come back, I'm expecting to do a lot of speaking, and a portion of everything I earn is going to go to the foundation, so that the kids will be helped in many ways.
Okay.
So given that this is Business Radio X, who can we help? I've shared out a couple of different ideas with obviously relationship with foster kiddos and then Chef Brett at Cartwright's. From a business perspective, who are the kinds of groups and or organizations and businesses that you know would benefit? I can't think of anybody who wouldn't benefit from hearing from you. But what introductions can we help you with on the business and organizational end of things?
It would be particularly helpful if you helped us with people that could make the climb possible, first of all. Maybe people who could give airline sponsorship or gear sponsorship or other
if
kinds.
They have extra airline vouchers or something?
Anything of that sort. The gear is going to be very important. And just generally some contributions to help, because there are tips over there beyond the things that we already have to do. And there are just lots and lots of things. And I wasn't able to bring back a single souvenir last time, and I hope I have some funds of my own that I can manage this time. Because if other people pay some of the other stuff that really is real business related, then I could do some stuff for myself as well.
A lot of ways to get involved.
So 2 weeks ago, we were on a hike, and one of the fellows that was with us from Alliances, he was wearing a Camelback, and he was telling Anne, you should get a Camelback, and it'd be a lot easier for you to have this instead of carrying your bottles of water and stuff. So, we did our hike, and then we get to this one point, and we're kind of resting there, and some guy commented on his Camelback that it's like, because it's an older one, and it's kind of, whatever, and so.
A classic.
Yes, a classic. Yes, that's the word. And so the guy that made the comment works for Camelback. He was here on vacation, so he said that he would send Anne a Camelback.
Well,
so is that happening?
I love that.
Not quite yet.
Okay.
Because the person, Dave on the hike has to reach out to him.
Yeah.
And he told me yesterday he hadn't, but he is going to.
Okay. So I'm sure he will.
Yes, I'm sure he will too. And it will be wonderful because it's easier to just sip as you go than try to dig in your pocket.
Yes, I have a Camelback. They make a big difference.
Just the timing of that whole thing was just like, really?
Well, and
it was wonderful. I borrowed one, the Camelback, when I did the Pikes Peak and those climbs, and it really helped a lot.
Yeah.
And I did want to tell you that Patagonia sent me a couple of things to make my trip easier: a face mask and a tote bag and a hat.
Oh.
And Patagonia, I'm not familiar with the company.
They're an outdoor company, and I actually did wear a lighter jacket the earlier part of the former trip of theirs. They didn't know that, but I did.
Shout out to Patagonia and Camelback. That's the name of the company, right?
Yep.
Camelback.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have time for it right now, but Scott, you called me the other day and you had a similar story where you had happened to just be out getting ready to go somewhere and you ran into a group of people that you're going to connect with, and we may even have them on the show. And that's what's so wonderful about life, especially to Anne's point, when we surround ourselves with people who are motivated and inspired and healthy. It can't help but lift us up to be the same, right? And then these beautiful serendipitous experiences, well, we feel like they're serendipity. I think it's God working on our behalf, but they're magical. And we get to sit back and be in gratitude and appreciation for just the abundance that we have. And again, to everything that you're doing with your organization and your commitment, be able to give back.
Yes.
I think that's why we're here, isn't it?
I really believe that. And it's satisfying to you as well as to them. There are all kinds of benefits to the person who gives as well as the person who receives.
And going back all the way to your story, and I can't recall how old you said you were, but for that woman who believed in you and saw the light in you and said, I want to take care of a scholarship for boarding school. Magical.
It really was. I was only 13. I was early in school, but I was ready to go on, and I got to go.
Amazing.
It is amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Quite the journey you've had so far. But still going, Anne.
Still is.
Glad to have you. And would you be willing to come back and share with us after your climb?
I would be delighted to, and I know it's going to be a better experience thanks to Scott.
We're going to make sure she's the best prepared that she can be.
I'm glad.
Yes. Tell
our listeners again where we can find you both on social media as well as the website or websites.
The website is creatingexcitingfutures.org. I have a Facebook page of the same name, Creating Exciting Futures. There's another one called Anne's Killy Climbers, and they all have interesting things. I also am on Twitter and Instagram, I believe, under the hashtag of I'm Watching Anne.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, isn't that great?
All right, I'll be getting on there and watching Anne.
Yeah. So.
Thank you. What a pleasure. And thank you for letting me share this experience with both of you. Rather than being off mic and listening vicariously, I'm happy to be on the front seat.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed it very much.
Oh, thank you, Anne. So, all right. So that will conclude our program for today. So I'd like to thank all our listeners for tuning in to this episode of Think Fit, Get Fit, Stay Fit, hosted by me, Scott Marsh, and sponsored by Mind and Body Strengthening. Through a revolutionary program using advanced science, we can help you break through the barriers of thinking fit, getting fit, and staying fit. You can go to our website, mindandbodystrengthening.com, for more information or to contact us. Have a great day.